awesome. We usually have people show up right at noon or a couple minutes after. So I usually get on early and then just kind of hang out.
It's so good to see you. I'm interrupting you, but that's fine. Hey, listen, why don't you tell George a little about who you are, who the audience, like just kind of lay the groundwork so he knows who he's talking to.
Sure.
And I have spoken enough, but George doesn't know.
Yeah, perfect. We're a group of passive investors. About 1,250 in our community. They invest passively in all kinds of different real estate syndications. We haven't done a whole lot on farmland. We've had a podcast guest or two, but people, it's not an asset class that is common to us. So that's a good thing. People will be excited to learn. We usually do, these webinars are someone will, talk for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll answer questions. Sometimes we get a ton of questions. Sometimes people are shy. It just, it totally depends on, and I can't predict it, but also we usually get 20 to 30, 40 people live, and we'll get 100 to 250 on the recording. So that's really it. It's just, our culture, the community is very laid back. People are hungry to learn and ask questions, but they're very casual, and no one's going to get uptight or anything like that. It's a very, it's a quality group. I don't know how it happened, but we've gotten a lot of quality people in our community.
George, say something so we can be sure we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. Excellent.
Well, it doesn't get any more laid back than where we are. So that's
Perfect.
A good match.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And I think, I got to fix my camera here, but I talked to, that's better, Adam, and we kind of landed on, he'll kind of guide the questioning and guide you through the presentation. And then I don't know anything about farms. So if you guys say something I don't get, I'll probably wave my hands or just mute you and jump in and say, what are you talking about? And,
Jim, this is pretty simple. I mean, it's
well, all right. Well, that's good.
It's really simple.
We might also have questions from the community, and often they just put those in the comments, and you guys don't have to read the comments. I will accumulate those, and when you guys are ready for questions, we'll ask those questions.
Hey, Jim, where are you?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, cool. Are you a Buckeye?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right there. You can see.
There we go.
And if I broadened out the camera view, you would really see that everything Ohio State is me. So it's a disease in our family.
You were real sad when Michigan lost to TCU, I bet, huh?
I was the biggest TCU fan you can imagine that day. Yep. I don't even want to start because I have a big connection to Ohio State. I was in the marching band there, and the years I was in it, we were terrible. So I'm happy that we're better now. But yeah, there's a lot of bitter feelings towards that team you just mentioned. I can't even say the name.
Well, it's funny, my son is dating this girl from Ann Arbor, right?
Oh,
her whole family went to Michigan. She went to SC for a medical engineering degree, right? So,
oh wow.
So anyway, so I was on the phone with her. I said, man, after the bowl thing went by, I said, man, between SC being destroyed by the Utes and then losing in the bowl, and then Michigan, I said, your house, it must have been a terrible Christmas at your house. And she goes, you can't imagine.
Yeah, well, you've picked a couple of them because I don't cry much for USC either, but I'll take them over that other team you mentioned any day.
Well, I don't know. That's tough duty either way.
Yeah. As a Buckeye fan, I could leave both of them and be happy.
Well, all I can say is I'm glad this is not the topic for this conversation, because you guys might as well just be speaking Greek, as far as I've got no idea what you're talking about. I'm so bad at this stuff that my wife hires students to hang out with my sons to play American sports with.
That's funny. Well, I'm a soccer fan too, but I was born a Buckeye, and it's so ingrained in our family. My grandfather helped build the stadium they play at that opened in 1921. My grandma was one of the first women that went and graduated from the school. So it's infected deep into our family for sure.
Right. Do you know how many people have signed up already, Jim?
So when we do a meeting like this, we don't have signups. We send out and tell people, here it is, it's coming. And like I said, I imagine about 5 minutes after we start will be when we really get the numbers in, but it'll slowly at noon, you'll start seeing people jump in. We're still working. I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, Adam. We still don't have all the processes in place to figure we're going to eventually have people register for these so that that you guys get a list of who attended and you know ahead of time who's attending. We're just not there yet. We're not sophisticated enough, and we hope to be there. You know, just full transparency, not there yet.
No problem. Yeah, not for today's call, but maybe Jim, you and I can talk about some ideas that George had regarding putting, maybe a little consortium together
Sure.
that would benefit your audience, but could be kind of, special for your audience that, we could help motivate you or them to put something together that might work, quite nicely. But let's talk about that after, and then you could maybe follow up by emails to your audience later to maybe mention that.
Certainly, yeah, and we work a lot. I think I don't know if we mentioned TribeVest, but that's a company that we work with to do group investing, and that might be something that could help us out here as well. And we can talk about all that after the
let's do that afterwards and not even hint at it during this call. But
yeah.
And I actually spoke to the Tribe guest. What's his name?
Oh, Travis Smith.
Yeah, I had a call with Travis.
Oh, good.
Let's see. So I'm going to create a QR code.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and I'll put that up on the thing.
Okay, and just for those listening in, we haven't started yet. We're just chatting, and we'll probably start in 1 to 2 minutes once we get the rest of the gang logged in.
All right, good. And then you can see how many people are coming into the room, are you?
Yes.
All right, but they can't see us, or they can?
No, they can. They can see everything. That's the thing. When we do a meeting, everyone can see what we see. So, yeah, make sure perfect. You don't do any obscene gestures or anything like that.
I did like a few minutes ago. Like those
exactly.
I did a few minutes ago. Okay. Campaign. Hold on. I'm just going to create this equals. What would you call this? Oh, lunch.
Lunch and learn.
Learn. All right, let's do that. All right, perfect. All right, yeah, I got a QR code. So all you need to do is to scan it. And there we go. Yeah, let's see. I wonder if I could create that as a background. Oh, no, yeah, it is a Zoom call. The only thing is my background's not green screen, so that's not going to be so.
Or you can put it in the chat.
A QR code. I could just put a link in the.
Oh, that's true.
In the chat.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you could just click on it. But anyway, I got a QR code. We'll use it now or later. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
All right, and we'll wait another minute, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good. So now the folk that are on the call, can they interact?
Yeah, if you like. I mean, they can unmute, ask questions, they can raise their hand. However you want to do it, we can handle it.
All right, perfect. Just having a look to see who's here. If there's anybody that I know. Let's see. I don't know if there is.
Hey, Adam, we should try to get through the pitch and then have questions afterwards, probably. So we make it to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll go through, background and kind of general investment thesis. George, is that okay?
Yeah. I think we just stay on a constant stream, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. It's not a long deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll go through, and then we'll go through the investment thesis, and then move to Viscara. You want to do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Well, it is just after noon. Are you guys ready to go?
All good. Let's go.
Ready and willing.
Fantastic. So thank you all for joining us for this Left Field Investors Lunch and Learn. We are really excited. I met Adam Gower maybe a month or so ago. He reached out, and of course I'd heard of him and his group. It's a they help people figure out how to do real estate syndications by crowdfunding. And I'll let Adam introduce himself, and then he's going to introduce our guest today, which is George Bravante. We're talking about farm and farming. So I'm really excited about this. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, George, for being here. We're excited to have you.
You're welcome.
Jim, thank you. And so I am not the core of the show here today. I'm just going to moderate, really, and curate conversation. But my background is in commercial real estate, investment, and finance. I don't like to admit it, excuse me, but I've been in this for, I'm not even going to say how long exactly, but over 35 years. And in about, let's see, probably around 8 or 9 years ago, I transitioned into digital marketing to help sponsors like me expand their presence online. And I met George through a good ally, and he introduced me to George. And it was my first exposure to farmland real estate. My podcast, I'd done a few podcasts with some of the platforms, but I never met anybody that talked about farmland like George did. I enjoyed it and found it so interesting that I actually joined him as a partner. And now we're working together to get the message out. So that's kind of very, very high level my story. If you do want to know more about me, I'm at gowercrowd.com. But most importantly, this story today is about George. George, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself and tell us a little about your commercial real estate background and how you migrated into farming.
Okay, thanks everybody. My name is George Bravante. I started my career in public accounting and in North Carolina, and then matriculated to Newport Beach, California with Ernst & Young, or Ernst & Winnie at the time. I quickly, did that job for a couple of years. Then I became the CFO for RMB Realty in Los Angeles, which was the real estate arm for the Robert M. Bass Group in Fort Worth, Texas. We did a lot of interesting transactions. We sold Donald Trump the Plaza Hotel in New York. We bought American Savings, this giant troubled thrift. I mean, we did a lot of different things. The bottom line is, when I started having children, I didn't want to work for private equity any longer and work 24 hours a day globally. So I started a small private equity firm with a high net worth family I was friends with. And, through a bunch of crazy things that happened, we ended up in Visalia, California for a year, in the middle of the Central Valley. And we were in the manufactured housing space at that time. Anyway, we liked the little town to raise our 3 sons. We stayed here, and years before we had built a vineyard and winery in Napa Valley. And I got my first kind of inkling that farming was something I had interest in. And anyway, in Visalia, the citrus business is on its ass. Ranches are really inexpensive. So as a deal junkie personality, I bought my first 600 acres and quickly figured out the cash flow and the tax incentives are really good in the real estate aspect of farming. So if you fast forward to today, we farm about 5,000 acres. We're vertically integrated. We have a packing house, sales company, cold storage, farming company. And I've always syndicated over the years, with friends and family, bootstrapping to begin with. We first started, I worked on the farming and sales, and my wife did the accounting and all the, the back office stuff. And now, we've got about, a couple hundred people that work for us full time. We got thousands of people that work for us part time. So anyway, we're fairly good at this. We're great partners. And we know how to, we're good fiduciaries with people that believe in us and invest with us. So anyway, that's my story.
Right. And so what excited me the most about your story, apart from also having managed billions of dollars of multifamily real estate and understanding commercial real estate that everybody understands so well, was the unique characteristics of farming that speak to a substantial long-term advantage over other asset classes. And that specifically is water supply, or if I say that in American, water.
Yes.
So tell us about the water supply and why that's so interesting, and why you're focused on the oasis.
I mean, part of the reason we started this crowdfunding platform is, you know, in California, the state government has signed into law in 2014 the Sigma Water Act, which is Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Basically, the long and the short of it is they have the ability to constrict pumping if you're overdrafting the supply of water under your ranch. And what that means is there's places that don't have surface water or district water. So if you look at the Central Valley, the Sierras are on one side, and that's where the water comes from, right? Snowpack. And this right now, we've got so much freaking snow up there, you can't imagine after the storms we just had. But, you know, so if you look at the valley, there's places that have lots of surface water coming out of the mountains, and some places have none. The places that have none have been pumping really hard for the last 70 years. And they're pumping at like, you know, 1,000 to 3,000 feet. And which means it's not a sustainable area. I mean, up here and where we're doing this, the Oasis area, we call it, you know, we're pumping at 100 feet to 150 feet, which is sustainable. It hasn't moved much in the last 50 years. And, you know, our thesis is simply, as the California government system gets hold of pumping and stops people from pumping that don't have sustainable groundwater, the areas like we're focused on are going to accelerate on value, and the crops on are going to accelerate on value or inflate, whatever you want to call it. So we have a simple pitch, you know, we're you know, and these areas with the good water, the Fresno Plain, if you know where Fresno is in California, this is where the, you know, million years ago, you know, the mountains were still creating a lot of water and snow, and Fresno was this giant river that came through that area to the South Valley, when the South Valley, you know, had hundreds of thousands of acres underwater in this giant lake called Tulare Lake. So we have a simple thesis. You know, we're only investing in this small area, 3 water districts. We know them. We know all the brokers there. We understand the water perfectly because we've been farming here for 25 years. And, you know, and there's a whole lot of other areas that have all kinds of issues going forward with, you know, pumping being constrained. So, you know, we believe that, you know, the ranches today that are 30 to 50,000 are going to 100, 10 to 15 years. And the crops that are on them, you know, supply and demand really works in agriculture. If, you know, we think 30% of the crops in the Central Valley are going to go away because they're not water to pump, you know, to grow them any longer as this act takes hold over the next 10 years. So anyway, it's a simple idea. You know, we're focused in those areas, and I mean, we can make pretty good money without that happening, but part of the reason I'm excited about this is that, you know, we've been getting 2 to 4%, you know, appreciation a year on most of the things I've owned for the last 30 years, a little more than that actually, but I think 2 to 4 is a good idea to think about. But I think it's going to, you know, they're going to really escalate as they turn the water off in the rest of the state.
Yeah, and you've really got to appreciate what's going on. So you're talking about a huge area of the Central Valley. And by the way, actually talk about California is a major food supplier, isn't it? These things that you and I know automatically, just talk about like the scale of the industry overall in California.
Yeah, I mean, California, you know, the North and South Valley here, you know, from Sacramento down to Bakersfield, it supplies about half the fruit and vegetables in the country. And as Florida gets more problematic, you know, with hurricanes and things that are happening down there, and the weather's kind of out of whack, I mean, you know, we're becoming a higher percentage. And there's lots of great fruits and vegetables from Michigan and New Jersey and North Carolina. I just, you know, the scale we produce at is so huge out here, and it's such an important thing. You know, people don't realize it, but, you know, some people do that aren't familiar with it, but it's a giant engine, you know, and as this engine from and the water is the lifeblood of it, right? So as California has enacted this law and has control now, you know, we're just going to squeeze the amount of produce we can create, and it's going to become more valuable, and the land that's good is going to become more valuable also.
Right, and demand is going up as well, isn't it, with population growth and
yeah, I mean, you know, worldwide demand, but I mean, it's geopolitical so crazy right now. I mean, you know, like we always break, you know, we grow a lot of table grapes, and we grow some of the best table grapes in the world, actually. And we're always bracing for impact when Peru starts shipping in like in end of December, because we're not quite done yet. Well, this year, Peru was on fire. They had, political unrest. They were blowing up the trucks as they were going to the port. I mean, nothing came in. So we had a good finish, but, we send a lot of produce to Asia. I mean, probably a third of what we grow goes to Asia or more. But when the tariffs went on 6 years ago, that threw a wrench in the deal. So, it ebbs and flows, but I mean, we're a major producer, not just for America, but for the rest of the world also.
Right. And so the principle is that demand is growing, and yet in the Central Valley, supply is becoming restricted because of water, and the land that you're buying is water abundant. Therefore, we see this macroeconomic impact on the value of the land. But there's something else, isn't there, that's very important. And I remember being blown away by this. Now I'm looking at the list, 20-something people on this call. I don't know how many hundreds will watch it later. I'm presuming that everybody knows what a cap rate is, right? Cap rate, the yield on an investment, typically in real estate. What's going on in farmland? This per acre and the kind of the disconnect between cap rates and income producing.
I mean, it's kind of, I grew up in the real estate business. That's what I did most of my career before I segued into the farming space. And, cap rates, the good old days in the 80s, 8 cap rate was good. You bought an apartment bill, you made money, you sold it, everything was great, right? But one of the interesting things about agriculture, people trade ranches on a per acre basis. They don't look at what the ROI is. They don't look at what the cap rate is, right? I mean, and if you did, the cap rates are gigantic on this stuff because every producer makes a different amount of money based on how efficient they are, how good they are, how good their customers are. So there's no clarity about, like, if you're in an apartment building in Encino in California in the Valley, they all trade the same quality apartments, kind of trade at the same cap rates within reason. You could have 200-acre ranches next to each other. One could make 10,000 an acre and the other one could make 3,000 an acre on the exact same, right next to each other with the same crops, because the people that own it go to a better packing house with better customers. I mean, it sounds nuts, but it's true. So, another part of our thesis is there's more institutional investors moving into the ag space all the time. Like last year, we had a private equity fund, little one that we did, and we had to liquidate after 10 years. Prudential Insurance Company came in and paid us almost $65,000 an acre on these mandarins that we grow. So you guys probably see in the stores, the Cutie brand. Well, all of our mandarins go in that brand, which is the best brand, the best company, the guys who make the most money, kind of. So anyway, I mean, that on those ranches, it was still probably a 16 cap rate. If you looked at cap rates,
65,000 an acre,
65,000 an acre, right? So an 8 cap rate be over 100. We didn't trade it that way, but the institutional investors are thinking about return on investment 10 years, 20 years down the road. That's why they're paying more than everybody else. And there's a lot of that happening now where people are coming in looking at it like an investment, like a institutional investment versus just one farmer trading to another. So anyway, that's another key element of what we're trying to accomplish. As more institutional investors come in, people are starting to look at it more on return on investment, not on a per acre trade. I've bought 5,000, 6,000 acres of ranches in my life. Everything what we've done is traded on how much per acre. And, and it's like, to give you as a short example, I have a ranch right now. Last year is 100 acres of mandarins, right? We made about $13,000 an acre on net back. It was a good year. We had a lot of fruit per acre. But if you think about that, at an 8 cap rate, that's $200,000, right? We sold that ranch to Prudential for $65,000. So it's still, you know what I mean? It's still not trading at the cap rates, because this year maybe it makes less. But as time goes on and things, get tighter and water gets tighter, all that's going to converge into, ranches being valued at kind of what they make and what kind of return it is versus on, two neighbors saying, hey, what do you want per acre for your ranch? So anyway, it's a key element of our thesis on why this is a great investment.
All right, so now you talked about two ranches next to each other. I mean, this is also utterly fascinating. This idea of value add in farmland. This was something that came to me. It was like, it sounds just like multifamily investing, is what it sounded like to me. Value add. So talk about that. When you look at a ranch, to buy a ranch, what are you looking at? How do you add value to a farm?
The first thing we look at are the bones of the ranch. Soil conditions got to be perfect. Water conditions. We have to have, plentiful water from in the ground in the wells, as well as the district water. Two sources of water that are predictable and for the long term, right? What crops are on it? What microclimate is it in? Some things grow better. Citrus, it can't be too cold. Whereas pistachios and wine grapes need winter dormancy to produce in the summer, right? So everything's a little different, but we know all that. So we'll pick the right land. But the bottom line is, lots of farmers are capital constrained. Their families, third, fourth generation. The average farmer in California is over 75. Generally, everything I've ever bought before is, the grandpa died and the kids don't want it. They moved to, they went to Stanford, or they went to, SC, and they're moving on to insurance, or they're doctors or whatever. They have no interest in farming anymore. So generationally, there's a huge target out there of farming people that want to get out. And generally what that means is they've not reinvested in the ranches. They haven't put the right irrigation. They haven't updated irrigation systems. They haven't put new varieties in. They haven't, farmed it hard enough. All these different things. So most of the things we buy, we see opportunity to increase the net income or NOI of the property instantly by just doing a few minor things. And then sometimes, like old navel orange, we grow a lot of navel oranges. There's a lot of old varieties that are basically worthless, and people are still thousands and thousands of acres on them. So there's some combination of new crop, better systems, which generate more cash flow to the ranch. And that's kind of the value add idea. It's kind of like you find a really good apartment building, that's dated, right? And then you go in and you do a superficial, you do new cabinet doors, fix up the bathroom, put new carpet in, nice paint job, and wow, the rents go up $200 a month. Same kind of idea. It's not that fluid, but that's exactly what we do. And it works really well.
Right. And your target farms, just also to put this into perspective, this idea of market consolidation, tens of thousands of, I think there's 70,000 individually owned ranches in the Central Valley, aren't they? So if you look at some of the bigger properties I have, we've got, we'll have they used to be 20-acre blocks with a little house and a little barn, and a family of 6 lived there, and they sent the kids to college, and that was their life. And back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you could make a living on 20 acres of navel oranges. They made good enough money. Well, I got branches where I've got 400 acres and I've got like 10 houses on the 400 acres with little barns behind them. And sometimes we keep them with our workers and people that are important to us in our company live there very inexpensively. And sometimes we just demo and plan over them. But there is a huge, huge migration from little mom and pops in the ag space to bigger purveyors of this. And we're like a medium to small group at 5,000 acres. There's plenty of people at 10 to 15,000 acres that have been doing what we're doing, just got there before I did. So, but there's a lot of opportunity to buy these couple little ones and put them together and make a really nice investment opportunity. Right. And those other farms, the 10 to 15,000 acres, they don't take on individual investors, do they?
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting space. It's tribal, you've got, people it's kind of like where I grew up in New York. My dad was growing up. You have the Italian neighborhood, the German neighborhood, you got the Jewish neighborhood. Farming here is kind of like that. You got the Armenians over here, you got the Basque guys over here, you got the Italian. It's still a little bit tribal that way, but it's all coming together, and it's consolidating really fast. And in most of these giant families, I started as a syndicator because I grew up, I had no money. I started with nothing, kind of. So I had to have help. I had to have partners. I had to become a good partner to keep growing. And but the big families that are good at this also, they just borrow the money based on properties they've owned for 100 years, 50, 70 years. So it's hard to get into the space with a real operator. There's syndicators that just kind of fly up here and fly over and try to find a property and syndicate it to make some fees. But people that have been doing it for 25 years or more, like we are, don't generally have opportunities like this. And I'm one of those guys like the big hat cat, no cattle. I've got lots of assets and no money. So if I want to keep growing, I need partners. So, I've got, a fairly good net worth on paper, but, it had to, get milk and bread last night. I had to dig the money out of the cushion of my truck. So it's, it's just, and also when you're in the packing business like we are, it takes lots of money because you're advancing money all day long. And so I feel like, I've always had partners. I love it. I meet lots of neat people, and, we have we're good at it, and, know how to treat. I mean, the other thing about farming people, the big companies, they're not good partners, these guys. I mean, they're always like diddling you a little bit, like they just never done it before. They don't understand what it takes to be a good fiduciary and and take care of people. They're kind of like real Americans, like it's like, whatever it takes. So anyway.
All right. So listen, let's talk about, the way that you've structured your deals for investors, which is really quite incredible. Let's talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to talk about one of the big competitive advantages that you have. It's one of those things that I came to realize you're very modest about, and because you're so familiar with it, kind of gloss over a little bit. And it's one of those things that really makes you stand out. And that is not just economies of scale when you buy these small farms, but the packing component, owning the packing and shipping component. Don't assume anybody knows why that's a good thing, how it works. Please describe that aspect of the farming business.
Well, I mean, if you had the chance to invest with just buy a piece of land, let's say, you have to go out and you got to find somebody to farm it. You got to find somebody to pack it if it's citrus or grapes or any, you got to get it to market somehow, right? So if you did that and you were an outsider, they'd tear you to shreds. You wouldn't know what hit you, right? They say, oh, they don't know what they're doing. It just would be one of those things where, they charge you a little bit more than they should. Your fruit wouldn't go on the Costco order. It'd go on some crappy order. And before you know it, you're making substandard returns. One thing we offer is, we're in this every day. We have customers. The packing house, we get to the ranch when the fruit's at its best, and we get it to market when it's at its best. That means we get more for it. And we have a great reputation for having the best fresh fruit to the customers we serve. Our people.
But how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you get it to market? That's the packing function.
Well, no, but I mean, how we get it to market is, we're on the ranches every week. We know what we have. And, it's like anything you do in life. Everything's got a optimal point to be done. And, we have different varieties of everything, early, super early, kind of early, medium, late. So the point is, with our own packing house and our own people and our total control of our crops, we're just doing it better than you could do on your own. There's a lot of commercial packers that just pack, don't own any land, are not vertically integrated, and they do okay too. But I used to be with those guys, and I'm doing way better now doing it, in our own facility than having them just being one of 1,000 growers. I mean, that little bit of tea, and this is a business of nickels and dimes, kind of. Every time we get one more orange in the box, that's 2 cents more, for the box, which means that's another $300 per acre. So, I mean, it's, and that's what we focus on here. This is not a complicated business. We farm it, we go to a tree, we pick off oranges, we put them in a box, we send them to someone to sell them. It's a simple business. to do it well is not as easy. And, you know, we've been doing it for a long time, and, you know, that's where we make the extra money. And most of my livelihood comes off of these ranches I already own. So, I mean, I'm very focused on this. And in our deal here, we're pitching today, you know, we don't get any money for 6, 7, 8, 9 years the way it's set up. So my 100% incentive is to get you all your money back and your preferred return back. So I start getting something then, which is pretty far downstream. So we're all aligned 100%. I mean, there's not big fees to come out of this. You know, we barely we make enough to cover what we're doing, but it's, you know, we're all aligned pretty well. And I think this vertical integration we have gives us the ability to get that money back faster, pref back faster, and make more money for our investors as well as ourselves.
Yeah, I'm anxious to talk about the way that you've structured your deals, but I do want to hold off. Please, everybody, hold on. We're going to get to that in a minute. But who are the buyers and distributors of your product? I mean, to the extent that you can talk about who they are. I know some of them are on the website, BravanteFarmCapital.com, but who buys your?
I mean, we have. I mean, as you do this over time, you build people that you're like-minded with, and you do a good job for them. So, I mean, Costco is a big customer of ours. We do grapes, we do oranges, we do lemons, we do Cara navels with them. Mm-hmm. Sam's Club's another big customer. We do stuff with Kroger. You know, we do stuff with, like in LA, I don't know who's on LA, but we do have a big relationship with Gelson's, which is a super high-end market. Our best stuff goes to. We do wholesalers all over the country. I mean, there's Kavakovich is a big wholesaler in Philly. We do tons of business with them. They're probably one of the best wholesalers in the world. So, you know, they want the very best, and we make sure they get it from us. So, I mean, from time to time, we do a lot of business in Canada. We do a lot of business in Asia. I mean, a lot of our citrus goes to Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, to the best growers, the best, you know, retailers there. So, I mean, you know, we're not a big company either. You know, I mean, you know, we can only service so many companies, and like Costco takes they probably take a third of what we do. And, you know, so, you know, we're limited, but we like to think that who we have, you know, are some of the best in the nation. And we only focus on is how much they pay us per pound, basically. So that's how we pick them. The other thing that we do is that's great for the partners, and for me as the grower side of this, if there's anybody else in the sphere that can do it better than us, we send the fruit to them to pack and ship and sell. So, for instance, all the mandarins go to this Cuties brand. And, you know, that's owned by a friend of mine in Burn Evans. He invented the mandarin business in America, basically. He did it single-handedly. And they make the most money for the grower, bar none. They're the best. They're the best at it. I don't know if you guys eat Cuties or mandarins, but, you know, try Cuties, Halo, Peels. Cuties is always the best, pretty much, unless it's a weird phenomenon. They just do it better than everybody else. It sounds weird, but they just do. So, you know, and like we have pomelos, and we closed a ranch in this crowdfunding space in December. There's pomelos, which are like an Asian grapefruit. There's another Sunkist packing house that is the best at that. We send them there. We have blood oranges that go to this other packing house that has a better deal than we can do ourselves. So a lot of people in this business, they just pack everything. Don't care about what the realization is. We send it wherever it takes to make the most money for the ranch, because that's how I get I mean, we don't make much money packing. We make money when the ranches make money. So
now you keep saying that you're small, and again, this you know, you're very modest, George. Just to put it into perspective, though, and I'm not sure. I think I've asked you this question before, so I hope it's not. I'm just not a gotcha. How many boxes approximately portfolio wide do you sell every year? It's like into the significant millions, isn't it?
Like we probably grow 4 to 5 million boxes, and we sell 3.3 to 3.5 million, which is, you know, medium small in the world we live in. But I mean, you know, anytime you do millions of anything, I mean, remember, we have our staff here, you know, putting stuff in boxes, making millions of them. I mean, it's mind blowing to me still all these years later, how many boxes it is. You know, when you start thinking about, and like, you know, we're picking 1,000 bins of oranges this week, which will make 20,000 boxes. So we've got, you know, armies of people out there. These bins are like 950 pounds. They're like a polyurethane giant container. And we pick the oranges in there and then we bring them in and run them. So, I mean, you know, we move a lot. It, you know, takes a lot of coordination and more importantly, to get the right block at the right time with the right oranges, you know, to come in and get packed and shipped. So the consumer experience is the best. So they keep coming back and getting more of our fruit.
Yeah, it's really incredible. At the packing house, you also have these machines that somehow read they're called bricks machines, but they somehow read the sugar content.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for Korea kind of invented this. Korea, people don't understand Korea. Korea buys more oranges per capita anywhere in the world, like 10 times more than every other country in the world. They love oranges for some reason. And so years ago, our pack line has got high intensity light machines that can tell you how much sugar is in every orange. So Korea pays $2 more a box or $3 more a box if you can tell them how much sugar is in every piece of fruit. And now other people are trying to do this, but I mean, you know, the packing we do is very sophisticated, you know, as far as size, grade, quality, now sugar, you know, how much acid. I mean, so, you know, it's, and if you don't do it, you're out of the game. So everybody's moving towards it. Not everybody has yet, but we got into it early and built a pretty good business in Korea.
Right, and it's you don't think about farming this way, but it is a high-tech business. Let's talk about deal structure, George. Just explain the way that you've put this together. You alluded to it before, but
I mean, the deal we're doing now is, you know, it's an 8% pref. So you get 8% on your investment. Then you get all your money back. So at the end of it, you know, so when we get to the point where you have all your money back and 8% on it, then we start sharing the general partner and my other partners that are doing this with me. So 70% goes to the investors and 30% goes to us. And then if you get, you know, once we get to a 2x multiple on your equity, then it's a 50-50 split. So, I mean, generally speaking, we'll work on this for 6, 7, 8 years to get your pref and your money back. And then we start getting something at that point, which,
right,
you know, I think is pretty fair. And that's how we've done things forever.
Just to be clear exactly how that works. There's an 8% pref. All distributions pretty much go to investors for the 8% pref and return of capital. And then you get a catch up and then investors double their money again. That's the projection. But at that point, investors have no money in the deal. And I was actually talking to somebody at CrowdStreet. I can't tell you who, of course. And it wasn't in their capacity over there, just to be clear. They described that as being the holy grail of real estate investing, that you have an investment in real estate with no cash in the deal anymore. And yet you continue to earn revenues and own a proportional share of the deal.
I mean, how I think about it is, and if we look at this over the first couple of deals we've done in this space, if you put 100 grand in, you'd get about 300 out in 10 years and be done. You know, it might go a little longer than that, but it's kind of, it's like a triple. How I think about it. And, and the other thing about this is not that this is not deal structure, but we're only using about 45% leverage on these deals. So we're getting a, mid to high teens return to the money, and it's low leverage. So, I mean, it is almost impossible to lose these ranches. I mean, you would take a cataclysmic event to do it. So another reason I've staked my claim in this in my life is, I like low leverage. I like cash flow, and I like making money. I like appreciation. So, I mean, all those things are kind of what ag encompasses based on my 30 years doing it. So that structure, it's a pretty good structure. The returns are pretty good, and the risk is relatively low.
Let's move on to Vizcara, which is the ranch that you've not quite launched yet. Actually, just to be clear, just so that everybody knows, the first ranch was fully subscribed. The first ranch that you took out to individual investors, fully subscribed in 20 days. The second one that we did in December, fully subscribed in under 48 hours. So if you're interested in the next ranch, you should go to, hey, I'm going to put this into the, I'll put it into the chat for you. This actually describes this link in the chat. Just click on it. Don't read it now. I don't want it to be a distraction for you. Click on that link. That will give you the full investment thesis over there. Let me just check on that page. There is a join the waitlist button. So if you are interested, go ahead and click on that button, put your name in, and we will let you know when Viscara goes to market. But why don't you talk about this current ranch, why you like it? It's called Viscara Savage. It's kind of cool. It's
this Viscara Savage, these are two properties. You know, we own these in the fund I was describing earlier that has to be liquidated. So both of these ranches I've built from scratch. They're in the really great water districts. Soil conditions are good. And now we've built the ranches, you know, we demoed what was there. We prepared the ground, which means we ripped the ground, put nutrients in the ground, got it ready. On the grapes, we put the trellis up, planted the grapes. On the citrus, we have mandarins, caracaras, and lemons. So, you know, we're about 70%. You take both of those ranches together, the production's at 75% today combined. In 2 years, it'll be 100%. So, which is a big thing, because to get a ranch that is brand new with the best varieties, best conditions, it doesn't come on the market very much. You know, people keep those things. So in other words, this one's ready to rock and cash flow is ready to come. The first year we're gonna close this deal on May 15th. So the next year will be about 80%, and the next year will be full basically. So I mean, our projections are, you know, showing about an 18% kind of return on this deal, I believe, overall. And you know, again, not a lot of risk, all redone. The water's there, the well water's there. You know, and you know, the mandarins go to Sun Pacific, you know, who's going to do a good job, and we do the lemons and the caras and the grapes. And on the grapes, it's a variety called Great Green, which is my favorite green variety. I don't know if people on the call here like table grapes, but you know, the last 15 years we've developed these really good green grapes that have the really nice crisp texture, you know, the great flavors. This is my favorite one, and we have a lot of customers that want it. You know, they prefer it.
George, how big is, talk about the numbers a little, will you? How much are you raising? How much is the acquisition? What's the minimum investment?
So the grapes are about 40 acres and the citrus is 100 acres. So it's about 100, just short of 140 acres. We are raising to buy them 5,450,000. Then we have about 900,000 of working capital, because we got to farm the grapes and farm the stuff. And there's some cushion in there because it's not a full production yet. The debt is going to be about 2.7 million, and the equity is going to be about 4 total. So, I mean, it's a very safe kind of transaction. You know, there's nothing, it's not like we're going to plan something and hope it works. Everything's growing really good and ready to go. Right. So anyway, it's a great prop. I mean, you know, it'll be, of all the, I probably got 20 different kind of citrus ranches, and this will be in the top 5 just because of where it is and what it is and how new it is. Right. And, you know, and the other thing too is, I'll tell you, I mean, this sounds silly in a way, but, you know, I love building things, and building ranches is not any different than anything else. I love it. And sometimes they just come together really well. And this Viscara ranch on the citrus, it just, from the day we bought it, it just came together, you know, beautifully. Everything worked. Everything's growing a little faster than it's supposed to. All the systems are great. You know, we have brand new wind machines on everything. I mean, it's a wonderful property. And, you know, so.
Just to let everybody here present know, we're coming to the end. Do please put some questions in the chat. I really do want to be sure that George has an opportunity to answer any questions. I know that I had thousands of questions when I first met George, so don't be shy. But George, back to you for a second. So you're paying around 38,000 an acre for these pretty much mature ranches. But you mentioned that you sold to, sorry, I couldn't. Prudential for 65,000 an acre. So what's going on? Why? How is it?
Well, I mean, it's the blended rate on this is the number you talked about. The mandarins on their own would be worth 50 to 65,000 somewhere. You know, the partnership that we put together on the fund, you know, my co-GP put together the pricing on this, and we have an internal ethics committee to make sure no one's taking advantage of anyone. So this has all been approved at a price they were happy with. I think that we could probably get a little bit more if we took it to market, you know, after we bought it. I think it's worth a little bit more, but you know, I mean, it's you know, we're predicting in 10 years, this 38,000 will be like 60 to 70,000, which I think is pretty, you know, that's a 2 to 4% we've been talking about. So, you know, they're both wonderful properties.
So Julia S, thank you so much for your question. She says, George has tons of knowledge, but the implication of her question is, are you the only person there at Bravante Farm Capital, or do you have a team? That's not how she asks it, but that's the implication. Tell us about the infrastructure. Who's there? You know, you and I have we talked about this as well. Succession, all that kind of talk about your team and the future.
You know, to do what we do takes quite a few people. So if you came here, you'd go to our front office where our chief financial officer is. We've got 4 or 5 people in the accounting department that do all the grower payables and all the payables we do. We have 6 or 7 people on our internal sales staff. You know, we have about 15, 16 people in these are full-time employees in our farming company. And then if you came into the packing facility, we have probably 20 or 30 full-time people in here that flexes, all this flexes to about 8,000 people. I mean, we have cherries that we do. We pick cherries. We have an army of 600 people picking cherries for 3 weeks every day. So we have a very stable organization. You know, inside of Bravante Farm Capital, we have a succession plan with my wife and son, Matthew, to make sure this thing, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, would keep going, as well as Rodney Aguirre, our CFO, would probably become the president of the company. So we've thought all that through. I'm not going anywhere, but if I do, you know, we're set. And, you know, one thing where I'm very proud of is we've had this packing facility, this company in a bigger way for almost 20 years now. And like 96% of our employees have been with us for 16 years or more. So we have a very stable operation. And I think that, you know, I think we're good to our folks, and we're smart and capable. And I think people feel great about being part of Bravante Produce.
So Randy has an interesting question. It actually dovetails directly into this, right? So you're going to see a credible longevity of direct employees. But Randy asks, how do you mitigate the risk of labor shortage, especially in the context of a not very friendly immigration policy in the United States?
You know, Randy, I used to worry about that a lot, and we have never had a shortage of labor, even when the news articles are about how bad labor is. You know, I mean, we use a lot of labor picking, packing. I mean, we do 2 million boxes of table grapes, and most of that is packed in the field. So we have, you know, 700-800 people packing grapes a day, and there's more people that want to work than we have, you know. So it's a theoretical risk, obviously, but you know, there's people coming looking for work every day. I mean, in California, you know, they're not hung up on, you know, banishing these people from work. So I mean, we have a pretty good situation in California on the labor side. So.
All right, so I'm going to ask Jim's question, but before I do, let me just reiterate this. So the way that George has structured all of his deals is like this. You get an 8% pref, and then your money back before George gets any share of profits other than from his co-invest, which is always 10% of the invested amount. Then there's a catch-up, and then investors split pro rata 70% until they double their money. Now, at that point, there's no money left in the deal, right? All your money has been returned with an 8% pref, and George will continue to distribute at 70% to investors until you've doubled your money. And then it goes to 50-50 once you've doubled your money with no money in it right at the end. Jim's question is, when does that 50-50 split end?
When we sell.
And until then, investors continue to get dividends. Their pro rata share, having doubled their money with no money in the deal, right? It's all been returned. You continue to get a proportional share, pro rata share of that 50%. Does that answer your question, Jim? So it could go on indefinitely or until the ranch is sold. When Peter Leon, your name looks familiar to me. I don't know. But when do investors start receiving first distributions? Let's talk about Vizcarra. I know it does vary, but when are distributions, and how does that work with farmers?
I mean, generally in the ag space we're in, right, we make one crop a year on everything. So basically on citrus, the crop starts getting formed, and then, we pick the crop during the winter, into the spring, we collect the money. We wait to see if there's any freeze for the following year, because that takes money to fix if there's a little bit of a freeze. And then if that's all good, we distribute to the partners the proceeds we get, less a little bit of, we don't distribute everything. We would save a little for a rainy day out of everything we do.
Some reserves, right?
And then we, for instance, on this deal, we're going to buy it on the 15th of May, right? We're going to form a crop this summer coming. We'll pick the crop next January, February, March, April, May. And then a year from then, you'll get your first distribution. So it's about a little more than a year and a half before you see your first money problem.
Can you give us a feel for your P&L percentages, right? Operating cost percentages, gross margins, etc.? I've never asked
on the property.
Yeah, I mean, like in general. Let's just say again, I don't want to put you on the spot for a specific.
Well, I mean, let's think of it this way, right? I mean, it's how I think about it. So on Vizcarra, there's 36 acres of mandarins. So let's say we get 50 bins per acre, which are those 900-pound containers. And let's say we get 1,600 of those, right? We're going to get from Sun Pacific a check for $250 to $300 a bin, right? So whatever that number is, that number is going to be $300,000-$400,000 or something like that. That 30 acres costs us $3,500 an acre to farm, which is about $100,000. So if we're successful, we'll make $200,000 to $400,000 NOI. We got to pay the debt service out of that, which will be kind of a smaller number, property taxes and crop insurance. So in that example, if the net is 300, that's 250 to 300 would probably be the number on that. And then the lemons are the same, the carrots are the same, and the grapes are the same. So, on mandarins, the price is a little higher, so the NOI is a little higher, right? Lemons, you make the same number of bins, but it's like $50 less a bin normally. So I mean, it's kind of that kind of relationship.
So Layla, thank you for your question. Layla asks, when you sell the land, how much do investors get? Let me answer that by popping this link into the chat. So this is some detailed information about Vizcarra Savage. Do click on that, save the link, because as soon as Jim signs off over here, you're going to lose the link over there. That has all the information in it. That's super detailed on Vizcarra Savage. Join the wait list, and then we will give you access to the PPM, to all the details.
The bottom line though is, if we're successful, you'll have all your money back. Your pref will be in the 50-50 in the money. So we'll get 50% of the proceeds on the sale, and the partners will get 50% of the proceeds. Yeah, roughly. And that's why I'm doing this, because, you know, we're not going to make much in the beginning. You know, the only way we're going to get really enriched on the deal is someday, 10, 12 years from now, when we successfully complete this transaction. That's when we get something, you know, compensation.
Yeah, you've got a very long-term view. You've structured this specifically so that you make money.
I mean, the bottom
a
line
long
is
time from now.
in agriculture, it's a long-term view. You know, I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, the ranches I bought 25 years ago, it's like gravy every year. I mean, we've got the money back 5 times, and, you know, we just keeps on ticking. We've redeveloped all those ranches now to these good varieties, making more money. So, you know, I mean, it's not a short-term thing. If you want a 2 to 3 year flip, this is not for you. You want something to create value for the long term, and, you know, it's something that could be pretty nice. And, you know, so anyway, I mean, you know, that's what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for my family and as well as myself.
Jim, you know, we're coming to the top of the hour, and I've got a few questions in the chat room here. You are the man to pull the plug. I'm happy to keep on going. There's quite a few people still around. Do you want me to continue through the questions, Jim, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's finish the questions. And that's totally fine. I want to make sure they all get answered. If you have the time, George and Adam, then yeah.
I have an 11 car. I got another podcast at 11, so I got to get off at 11.
Right. So we've got another hour and 6 minutes.
No, I mean, I got 5 minutes.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock. That's right. I'm wrong. No, it's 10 o'clock. Okay. You got 5 minutes, but it's only 10 o'clock. All right. So quick question about tax. Pranav asks, what is the tax stream? Is it passive income through a K1, regular dividend through a 1099?
Yes.
And is there a California?
I mean, here's an interesting thing, just an interesting thing about how this really works. It's a little counterintuitive, but everything we put on the ground, like is depreciable, right? So you buy a piece of property, you put roads on it, you put a well in the ground, you put a pump in it, you put irrigation distribution through the property, right? You know, like, you know, these little drip lines with a little emitter on it. Put the trees in the ground or vines in the ground, trellis, right? Wind machines if it's citrus for frost protection. All that stuff is 5 to 7 year property and depreciable. So, and basically it accounts for about half of the price. So on Viscara, it's $5.5 million. We're going to have 2 to 3 million of depreciation in that deal. That will shelter your income starting out. And if you have other passive, you know, stuff, you can take it all. I mean, right now there's this bonus depreciation where you get all of it. That's going to change, I think. But you shelter your income for the first 3-4 years. And then when you recapture later, you get cap gains treatment on it under the current law. So it's a pretty efficient tax deal. And I've really benefited. My tax rate over the years has been pretty low doing this business. Secondly, the property taxes are in this thing called the Williams Act, which basically froze it years ago. So the property taxes are below market. And, you know, it's a real benefit they did for farmers in the Central Valley in California. And so, you know, it's, you know, there's 2 really good incentives that way for farmers. And as partners in the farm, you'll get those benefits.
George, you know, I am going to draw it to a close. Last question, a quick question, if you don't mind. Is there a risk? How do you actually? This is from Randy. Do you consider climate change risk as a real risk? Do you think crop output will change in the next 10 years?
I mean, climate change is real in my mind. You know, we're seeing more crazy weather all the time. But I mean, you know, you know, you could, one little ranch can get hailed on, you know, 20 years ago, 50 years ago now. You know, weather, temperatures are a little tricky. You know, I mean, I don't think it's a huge risk because when we have issues and the crop gets smaller, we make the most money. So years where we have a little bit of freezing, a little bit of hail, a little bit of this, that's when we make the most money. So we make huge crops that are perfect, we make less money because supply and demand kicks in and we have oversupply. So, I mean, I think that, you know, I wouldn't want to be doing this by the equator, but, you know, where we are in the Central Valley, our microclimate's really excellent. And, you know, I think for the foreseeable future, we're fine.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Jim, thank you so much. Everybody, I just put in the chat again the link to Viscara Savage. There is a red button there that says join the wait list. Just click on that link if you do want to know more.
The other thing about our wait list, it basically puts you in our system, and even if you don't want to invest, but you're interested in the ag space, we put up a lot of educational stuff that, not educational, but as we go and something happens, we talk about it, how things work, so I mean, even if you don't want to invest with us, you might have some interest in, getting our emails once in a while. And it's not emails selling emails. It's more like how things work in our space. And anyway, and so anyway, I appreciate everybody's time, and I'd love to have you guys involved with us if you had the inclination. So, and if you go to our website and you have other questions, you can email me direct also, and I'll respond to you and set it up. So anyway, hey, Jim, thanks so much for your time also putting this together. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. George, thank you. This was fascinating. As I said, we don't hear a whole lot about farms, but now we have a way to learn more, and we learned a bunch today, and going on the website, I'm sure we will learn a lot more. So thank you, George. Adam, thank you very much for setting this up. This has been fantastic. For everybody else, thank you for joining. We will be posting the recording as soon as we can get it edited and up on YouTube, and then we will send that out to all of those on our mailing list. So thank you, everybody, for the support of LFI, and thank you for attending this Lunch and Learn. And take care. Have a good week.
Thank you, guys.